So I'm excited to introduce Chris Steadman as the very first guest author in Pierce College's new Speaking of Humanities series. I discovered Chris's book, Time to Scrap, through the backroads of social media when I clicked on a story about a high schooler self-publishing a book about superhuman fighting. I bought the book, read it in a single sitting, and while I was entertained by the skillful action writing, above all else, I was struck by this book's sustained and thoughtful engagement with anti-racism, generational trauma, and the possibilities of healing and justice. I'm looking forward to hearing more from Chris about his book and his writing process, what he hopes to accomplish through this project, and what he's working on next. So please join me in welcoming Chris Steadman. I feel like if we were in person, we'd all be clapping.
Yeah, thank you.
I'll give you some emojis and hand the floor over to you.
Yeah, so before I just get too far in, like she said, this is my first book. Still in high school, actually graduating next Saturday, so that's going good. Or wait, no, I'm not. Prom is next Saturday. Then after that, I'm graduating. I'm in Tennessee. I know Pierce, that's in Washington, right? So that's pretty far. So yeah, I'm in Tennessee right now. And yeah, I think I could get into everything else, like by the questions, a little bit more about me and my upcoming projects. But I do have other projects, other books that I'm working on right now. I've actually finished the manuscript for my next book, I think a few weeks ago. So yeah, I'm just a young author, just writing, and found my passion real early, which is good for me. And I've been very, blessed and thankful to get this far. I mean, it reached Washington from Tennessee. So it's just crazy. So, and I'm very honored for the opportunity to be sharing this book with you all today.
Thank you, Chris. And yeah, we're just really happy to have you here. Did you want to jump in and start reading from the first chapter?
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna read chapter 1. I'm gonna read a little bit of chapter 1. I'm gonna try not to get, for those that haven't read it, I don't want to try to tell you too much, but I'm gonna give you a little bit to get you a little excited for it. I'm gonna be reading the first, like, I guess you could say, main conflict from chapter 1, and then if I have enough time, or things fit the timeline of this, I'll reach chapter 5 as well. So yeah, chapter 1, one mission. Oh, another thing. I'm gonna try to. My mom says I read a bit too fast, so I'm gonna try to slow down and try to be as clear and concise as I possibly can. So excuse me if I mess up a few times. Chapter 1, one mission. You messed up. You know you messed up, right? My friend Jamal tells me. I've gotten myself into a beef, I guess, with some guy named Michael, or No Games, his gang name. To be honest, I forgot how it happened. Something about me liking his girl's picture on Instagram and commenting on it. I may or may not have tried to shoot my shot with her, but at the time I thought she was single. He responded talking tough, so I returned talking tough myself. He threatened me saying he'll beat me up and shoot and stuff like that, but I've known him since the 3rd grade. He's built a reputation for talking tough, but not actually doing anything. So I wasn't sweating it. I've tried to forget about it, but with Jamal in my ear, it's kind of hard. Today is Friday, and he said him and the rest of his gang will pull up when the school is out. What will you do, he asked. All I did was like Stacy's picture on Instagram. I didn't know she dated a gang member, I tell him. Well, what are you gonna do now, he asked. I don't know, and I really don't want to think about it. I got better stuff to worry about, I tell him. Well, you better, or that's your ass, or possibly your life. I'll talk to you after lunch. As I walk to class, I see Stacy walk by me. She looked like she wanted to tell me something, but she kept walking. She seemed like she was in a rush, but wanted to warn me about something. I don't sweat it though, and wave and smile at her. She ignores me and keeps walking. I get a feeling of disappointment, but mostly anger. She's the one who's been entertaining me all this long, and we've been texting for 3 months now. No game should be mad at her, not me. I didn't even know she was in a relationship till recent. I walk to my first period class, and as the teacher starts her lesson, I zone all the way out. I can see and feel people looking at me though. It's probably because they know about the beef. I even hear someone talking about it, but I zone them out too. With all this happening on Sunday, I had forgotten all about this. With me working to help my mom and sister, foolish things like this slipped my mind. And honestly, I think he's bluffing. I go through the rest of my first period class, and once again, I totally forget about it by my third period. I try to focus on what I'm going to do before I clock in at work today. School goes by, and I was supposed to meet up with Jamal after lunch, but he had restriction for skipping second period and ate his lunch in the gym. He stayed there for the rest of the day. He spots me though as I walk home from school and catches up to me. He starts talking fast and frantically. Hey, bro, we have to move fast before they pull up. Some kid in restriction told me no game's not trying to talk, and he got heat, he tells me frantically. What? Bro, it's not that serious. He's probably capping too, I say, trying to laugh it off, thinking he's joking. No, bro. He showed me the pictures. They're not playing today, he says in a panic. Wait, you saw the pictures of them with guns? I asked, starting to get a little bit worried. Yes, bro, we got to go now. I wasn't worried before, but now I feel my heart drop when he confirms that he saw pictures with them with guns. I really don't want to believe him, but I can't take the chance of them actually pulling up on me right now. We both plan to dash home as soon as possible. We look around and make sure no one is onto us. Then we slowly speed up some more and more until we're almost fully sprinting. My house is kind of far away from the school in walking distance. I don't have a car, and usually I don't mind the walk, but today is obviously different. We almost make it to my house when we suddenly hear a loud skirt and engine roar down the street. A red 1988 Hyundai Excel. I feel my heart start to beat faster and faster. I know it's them. We try to run faster, but it does us no good at all. They catch up to us, and three of them in the back seat jump out the car and grab us. We try to struggle them off, but fail. Two more of them jumped out the car. Which one of you is Moneymaker Joseph? No Games asked. Jamal instantly points at me. I was mad at him for a second, but then I saw the fear in his eyes and couldn't blame him. He had nothing to do with this, and he was just trying to help me get home in time to avoid them. They throw him on the ground and put me against the brick apartment projects. So it's your punk ass talking about my girl on Instagram, huh? Well, what's good now, punk, says No Games. I want to talk trash back at him, but I know it could lead to even more drama. It's more of them and only me and Jamal. I bite my tongue hard and ball up my fist as they hold me against the wall. But my efforts to lower the hostility, of course, fail. I see one of them pull out a gun and holds it by his hip. At this point, I knew it wasn't a game and they were very serious, but sadly, it may be a little too late. I knew I was going to die over nothing. Please don't kill him. It's not that serious, Jamal cried. Shut up. You better leave before I catch two bodies today, No Game says. No Games pulls out a gun and pulls the clip. I begin to struggle for my life and cry, thinking it's over. I'm not short or too small, but No Game stands about 6'6" while I'm only 6 feet tall. He suddenly stops, though, and looks down the street. We hear a car with loud bass drive fast down the street. A red 2008 Impala SS with shiny 22-inch blade rims pulls up and parks in front of the project apartments. I can't see who's inside it, though, due to the heavy tent. 6 more Blood Gang members get out of the car. Hey, No Games, chill out, man, one of them says while getting out the car. A guy who seems to be the leader approaches No Games and takes his gun. Nah, he was the one talking about Stacy and talking crazy on Instagram, all on my girl's page, No Game says. I don't know why you care about that gal anyways. Plus, we done already dropped 3 fools this week already. And the word is that the police are onto us because somebody snitched. We need to chill, fool, the leader says. All right, but I'm going to at least whoop his ass then. Well, do that. They throw me hard on the ground. Get up, punk. Let's scrap, No Games tells me. I know I'm not getting out of this, so I get up and put my hands in a fist. Growing up in Memphis taught me how to fight. I've been in many already, but it's kind of normal around here. And I'm not that small, so I know how to defend myself. But they circle around me, so it's getting jumped that I'm worried about. He swings a punch, but I duck under him and jab him twice in the face. He stumbles back a little. Oh, so you can move, huh? I bet, he tells me, chuckling afterwards. As we square up more and size each other up, I punch him one more time on the side of his face. It hurts my hand badly, but I see him stumble again and he falls back against the Impala. I give him no time to recover and I run up on him, swinging and hitting him in the face and his body with all I got, yelling in the process. But then suddenly, I feel 2 hands on my shoulders and instantly know it's over for me. They slam me back to the ground and I fall head first on the sidewalk. I hear a loud ringing noise in my head before I knew it was over. Well, no, I hear a loud ringing noise in my head, and before I knew it, I was getting jumped. They stomp and kick me and start to yell and cuss at me. I get kicked in the ribs and let out a loud, painful yell. Shut up. You're not tough no more, huh? No games ass. Chill, chill, you got it. I'm sorry, stop it. I cry and plead for them to do. But not shockingly, they ignored me. I get jumped for at least 4 minutes straight, but it feels like 4 years. Hey, no games, let's bounce, the leader finally says. All right, no game says. Before they leave, no game kicks me dead in the eye and I yell in pain even more. Next time, watch how you talk to people, fool. We won't be so nice. No games tells me as I groan and cry on the ground. I hear them all take off in their cars. I can't open my eye and it even hurts to cry, but I do. Jamal approaches me slowly and helps me up. I'm sorry, bro, he says as he begins to cry too. He asked me, do I want to go to the hospital? But I tell him I can't miss work. As crazy as that sounds, that's how bad my situation is at home with money.
Awesome. Thank you. Um, let's see. Uh, I'm like, I don't understand how online etiquette works. Like every Vernon is clapping for you. I'm like clapping like in real time because I can't use the reaction button very well. But anyways, like thank you. That was lovely. Does anyone have a question they're just wanting to ask this very second? If not, I have a couple prepared. Okay, I'm going to ask the first one then, and then please, those of you in the audience, like feel like you can jump in with questions as well. So, Chris, the first question I had for you is about how this project got started. I'm hoping you can just tell us a little more about it. Who inspired the story? How did you decide to start writing it? To what extent is it autobiographical? Who are your primary influences in terms of like what writers were you reading when you decided to put this together?
Oh man. Okay, so I'm gonna try to. I don't want to be too long with this one. So with this book, Time to Scrap, believe it or not, it's actually not my first written book. I plan to, and I'm gonna try to keep it brief. I plan to start like a publishing company where I can get a lot of books and comic books. And I've actually written a lot of manuscript for comic books. Thing about comic books is they take a lot. You know, you got to have artists, you got to hire people. So I pretty much said I'll just start off with a book, you know, and I started off writing one story, but then when I was writing that story, I was like, okay, this has to be a comic book because it's too good and too long. And then I started Time to Scrap. But the main inspiration, or what really got this book started, was during this time period. Me and my little cousin, we were playing a lot of games, like a lot of fighting games, and in particularly, we was playing my stepfather's his Super Nintendo and playing Street Fighter 2. And like I've liked fighting games before I played that game, but something about that game in particular, it just like really got me into fighting games. And I'm still suffering from that painful addiction to this day of just being able to play fighting games. So I already had the fighting game, you know, concept in my mind of having like a somewhat of a tournament ideas. And that's kind of where this stemmed from. But just the whole element of realism, and you know, because although this book has a lot of, you know, it's fiction, entertainment, funny moments, there's a lot of realism in it as well. And I decided to put that in there because, of course, you know, as we'll get to later, most likely, Angie Thomas, she's one of my favorite authors. I had just bought her book on the come up around this time, and her book, The Hate You Give, was my favorite book that I've ever read. Wait, somebody's.
Oh no, did we lose Chris? Jenny, you're muted.
I think we lost Chris for a moment. Hopefully he'll be able to rejoin
Oh
us
darn, yeah.
in a moment.
Do you want to pause the recording?
Yeah, let me try.
I think if you hover over the where it says recording, the pause button. Oh.
Sorry about that.
Oh, you're all good.
Okay. Oh, what was I? Yeah, just Angie Thomas. Reading a lot of her books, and 2020 itself, we were seeing a lot of protests, a lot of it was probably the peak of the Black Lives Matter movement with deaths like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery. So just that feeling during that time, and um, just having all that on my mind, and I just kind of threw that in this book as well. So that was the pretty much the start of the story. As far as characters, what I tried to do with the characters is pretty strange because I'm gonna bring up Street Fighter again. I kind of took somewhat of a Street Fighter character, made them realistic, or put them in situations that I'm familiar with, or more realistic situations, and go from them with there. So for example, I'll probably say maybe like Ken or Ryu or somebody. I'll probably take one of them, make them realistic, and turn them into a character. And over time, they will develop into something totally different from the people that inspired them. So that's kind of what this book. And I think I've done a good job at it because the one thing that I've gotten a lot from people with this book is that it's so entertaining, it's so fun, but then it has those hard hitting moments of realism. And a lot of people like the fact that it's mixed pretty good. So I'm glad that people like that aspect of it.
Hi, Jenny. This is Arturo. Can I jump in?
Oh, yes, please.
Hi, this is Arturo. I'm a Spanish professor here at Pierce College. And Jenny told me about you a couple of days ago and your writing style. And, I've not read your book. I'm going to be just honest about that, but I do want to read it. And I was intrigued by something that Jenny told me about your book because she has read it. And I've been the reason I want to read it now is because I know that from what Jenny told me, you don't necessarily follow conventional writing standards, where like you're always using a capital letter, following like the writing mechanics of like whatever standard English is. And I was just kind of wondering if this is so the case with your book, what is like the motivation behind writing this way? And I don't find anything wrong with not writing with capital letters, say, for instance, right? But you to write this way, or what are your motivations for not following conventional writing standards? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I totally get what you're coming from. One thing that I will say, as far as like, I know, like I'm looking at a page right now where there's a lot of just words that are very like just capitalized. I capitalize the whole thing, and like I said, I've done like most of my work, and a lot of people have said they can see this book as a comic book, so I kind of threw those in there. But as far as just like certain, like I know there's a lot of slang words and a lot of, just words that are phrases sometimes that goes against, normal book styles. And I kind of wanted to connect more with the, average, kids such as myself. One thing I will say is that doing this at such a young age and doing it all independently, I didn't have an editor. So I was kind of very scared of even releasing it at first because I was like, okay, I'm gonna edit it again. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna do it again. I just didn't want the book to look stupid. And I did it like 5 times myself because I was so scared of releasing it and then not, be good or people not being able to read it. So that's one thing. It's a learning process, but I wanted to be able to connect with people like me. Like I know, like people that read the first chapter at my school, even that don't have the book, they'll read it and be like, "Oh, wow, he talks just like how we talk," or he says things like how we said, or it feels like they're kind of having a conversation with these people that can be in their area, sort of. So the characters don't seem too far out of reach. It doesn't seem like these are just like, yeah, they're people with powers, but the audience can relate to them a little bit more, especially young teenagers such as myself, or even young adults or people in general. It's just to connect with the younger audience a little bit better.
Great, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Darby and Julia, did either of you have any questions you wanted to ask Chris?
Just a shout out at just how accomplished you are. That was really nice. Cheers.
Thank you so much.
Not a question. I just really appreciated you like explaining that last part. I thought that was really cool.
Thank you.
I don't want to monopolize our time with more questions, but I have more. Vernon, I know that you know well, what I've got lined up to ask here, but are there any other questions that you wanted to raise with Chris?
I don't. I kind of just want to hear Chris keep talking, right? Like, I think, I'm like super impressed the way that you think about like audience, Chris, right? Like, I think it's that's what I was gonna ask you. Like, who are you writing for, right? And I think it's like it's really amazing that you're like connecting like video games and comic books and then bringing it into this space to make like the space of like, I don't know what we want to call this, like a novel, like more accessible and like a space that like, you know, like young people can enter into, right? It's like, I remember like in high school, we're just like, we're reading, like the way we think about novels is like, this was not supposed to be for me to read, right? So I think it's just like amazing that you figured out an audience and a way to talk to them already, right? And you're considering them. I think that's super cool. So I just wanted to congratulate you on that.
Yeah, thank you. One thing I will say about the whole audience thing. However, at first I'm not gonna lie, when I first like released it, and I was like, okay, maybe a few, you know, young people, you know, people around my area, but the fact that, you know, it went beyond that, you know, I feel like if I had people like reviews, people tell me like they're in their 60s and usually things like this won't get their attention, but it's the fact that I think it's the fact that yes, video game inspired, yes, comic book inspired, but it's real life modern things in there as well that I think that brings it in. So I feel like it has a little bit something for everybody.
Yeah, maybe I'm going to ask you kind of like, it might sound kind of like a dumb question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, Chris. As I was listening to you read this, I was like thinking, right, it's like, it's written in the first person. And the thought that came to mind was like, how much can I trust this narrator, right? Like, what came to mind was like, I'm pretty sure he did more than just like her Instagram post, right? Is that something that you're thinking about? Like, because for me, it's like, wow, there's a lot of depth to these characters, and you like accomplish that in like such few words, right? Are you thinking about those kinds of things?
Yeah, there's like I would say there's a lot of things that are stated but don't go into much detail. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not gonna lie. Some of it is not intentional all the time. Like I'm still learning. This is my first book. It's a new process, but there's definitely a lot of things in this book that I might like briefly talk about a bit, but it goes into so much more behind the character or just other things in general.
Right on. Thank you. I'm gonna hand it back to Jenny for her questions.
Okay, Chris, I'm gonna, I think, jump around a little bit in the questions I sent you because I think we've managed to talk about some of these things obliquely already. We've touched on them a little bit already. So I want to go down to some of these questions about some of the specific content in your book, and we might need to fill in a little bit of detail for folks in the room who haven't read the book. But I am curious, once you start getting into well, maybe I'll ask you. Maybe I'll ask you to kind of. But before I ask these questions, Chris, maybe you could give us a really kind of like fast forward summary of what happens in the book and what happens with Joseph and how he ends up in the tournament where he encounters all of the characters that he has these like various kind of competitions with throughout the book. Would you be able to just give us a quick summary and then maybe we can jump into some of those questions about Mr. USA and some of the other competitors?
Yeah. All right. So with pretty much after that scene, one thing that I wanted to show with that last line, if I could go back to him, where, you know, Joseph asked, or no, where his friend Jamal asked him, you know, do you want to go to the hospital? You know, yada, yada. He says, no, I got to go to work. So that shows how, not, I don't want to say desperate, but how low his family is to where he could get beat like this, but work is still on his mind to help his mom and his sister. So to kind of wrap things up, you know, he runs into those gang members again at work. He runs into them again. After work, they say, they pretty much say, you know, you're still in debt, whatever. You need to, you know, we still want more from you because we spared you last time. They say you need to rob your job, or we need money from your job, yada, yada, this. He's like, that's ridiculous. Why would I do that? I can't do that. Then again, but he doesn't have any options. So he's at work. He can't go through with that. He can't, you know, he just can't rob his job. You know, he's worked there for a long time. So when he runs into those gang members again, he gets chased. You know, they're chasing him, saying they're about to get him and yada, yada. Two people come help him. One of them is a girl that he ran into earlier. Her name is Nia. She has powers. She has like hair powers, where she got hair control, where she fights with her hair and her hands. And one of them is Master Isaiah, who that will later be his trainer. So they help him, take him to the hospital. One thing I did skip, he heard about the Time to Scrap tournament before he got jumped, or before they chased him, heard about the prize money and all that stuff. And he's like, shoot, with the life I'm living, I mean, I ain't got powers, but I mean, it's, you know, I gotta eat, I gotta do something. I have nothing else to gain. I have nothing to lose. So, you know, he's asking him, yo, you fought in the tournament before. Can you train me? He's hesitant, but, you know, he eventually takes him in because Master Isaiah once also started off with no powers, but he won the tournament. So that's why Joseph can trust him to train him. You know, so they're training him and Nia. Nia's whooping his butt because Nia's been doing this her whole life. She's been, you know, she has power. She's got power since she was little. She's whooping his butt every day. He gets frustrated at times, but over time he learns that it's about faith. And that's another big topic or discussion that takes place in this book is faith. And that's my main power source in a way. I watch, you know, with Street Fighter, they got the, you know, whatever Hadouken thing they do, and Dragon Ball, they got the Chi Kamehameha type stuff. But I wanted my power source to be, you know, something that I could relate to. And it's kind of a metaphor or symbol for real life faith. So the power source in here that he gains is faith. And so he finally gets that, you know, goes to the exhibition. He meets, you know, Mr. USA and all the other fighters, Killer Carlos, which some people don't like. He meets, you know, he just meets a lot of different fighters, you know, Haru. I don't know how I almost forgot him. He meets Haru, Gyro. And Gyro, he has a beef with, once again, I'm going to try not to go too much into it because I want you guys to read it, but he has a beef with Master Isaiah. They have some beef in the past. So, you know, the exhibition goes through. Him and Nia make the exhibition. You have to win a match in the exhibition to make it to the tournament. So they just fight in the tournament from there. And no, I'm not gonna say that. There's kind of a plot twist in one of the fights later on. I didn't think it was a big deal until like a couple of my friends, they was like, yo, we read your book. We wasn't expecting that to happen. Or, yo, what? This fight, what happened? Yo, what happened? Like, so I don't want to spoil too much right there. So, but yeah, you know, just, you know, that's kind of what this book is about. You know, he pretty much starts from nothing, and, he doesn't have anything at much. You know, his mother is poor. His mother even gets sick at one point in the book. And it's just about Joseph coming up and overcoming those struggles, getting surrounded by people that's going to help him, push him to his limits. You know, he has to overcome a lot. I don't know how I forgot that detail as well. He lost his father at a very young age to a police, pullover accident. He lost his father, so he's still kind of getting over that, getting over poverty, just being able to open up and get faith, because there's a lot of people in real life that go through so much, and it's like they lose faith that, things could get better as long as they stay positive and stay, hungry for that better life. So that's kind of what this book is about. It's about, the fighting and all that stuff is cool, but it's about faith and pursuing and just getting over the odds, even when those odds seem impossible to get over.
Maybe this is a good place to ask you if you're willing to read another little piece for us. I think we're going to have time for that, and it'd be lovely to hear another section of your book before we go into a few more questions.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go to chapter 5. Yeah. So just a little bit context to get to chapter 5. He's already met Master Isaiah and Nia by this point. They've been training. He's been getting beat down every day. So yeah, that's the context for that. Chapter 5, faith. The next few weeks goes very similar, except the whole killer teacher thing. It's a little hard to keep up with the jogs without me being angry at Master Isaiah, but me knowing I've done it before pushes me to keep going. I keep up with my reps as we continue as well, and over time I even notice that I'm getting bigger, faster, and stronger. But Nia and Master Isaiah always humble me whenever my head gets too big. Speaking of Nia, weeks go by, and while I do get better, I still don't even touch her in our combat trainings. Every time I get close to hitting her, she just uses her hair. Every day after training, it pisses me off so much that I didn't touch her and that she's beating me without even trying. And for some reason, Master Isaiah has been making a real big emphasis on meditation and my faith with God. Why? I have no clue, but it's pissing me off, and he's wasting a lot of time that could be dedicated to fighting on dumb stuff like meditating. I ask him, does this play a role in me getting Z a lot? But every time I bring up Z, he punches me and tells me to worry about my faith instead. These past few days, I've been getting very pissed and angry. I'm not improving in my fights despite my hard work, and I've been meditating for hours every day, and I still have no powers. One night while eating dinner with Master Isaiah, I snapped. I'm wasting my time, I say out loud. How am I not getting better? What are you talking about? Master Isaiah asked in confusion. I've been busting my ass off every day, and I still can't even touch her. And she's not even using her powers all the time. And it's been weeks on top of weeks, and I still don't have my Z. I kept my end of the deal. You said if I work hard, you'll get me ready. And I have, but I haven't gotten any better. I yell in frustration while slamming my fist onto the table. He gets up and punches me in the chest so hard I fall to the ground. 1, don't ever yell at me. And 2, I said I will push you past your physical and mental limits. It's up to you to use them to your advantage. And if you quit being so damn worried on your Z and focused on your faith, you'll be closer than you are now. Z doesn't just come to anyone seeking power. It comes to those who believe in their hearts, not their heads, he says. Believe in what? I ask in anger, trying to catch my breath. God or the goodness in this earth, idiot, he says. How can I believe in God when I grew up in hell, huh? If there was a God, then why would he put me in hell my whole life instead of heaven? I would be in a big house with my mom and dad, without living in a neighborhood where people die every day. That's what God does. But I guess I'm not good enough for that, huh? Or Z, I say in anger, trying to hold back tears. I seem to catch him off guard. He pauses and tries to catch himself. Life is hell, kid. It's a test to see who's worthy. It's up to you. It's up to you to make it, but only you can decide that. Not me, Nia, or your family. You have to actually feel in your heart, Joseph, he explains. That's what Z is, Joseph. It's faith. Even if you don't want to believe in God, you must find the positive in your life. You must gain a positive spirit inside you, Joseph, he says, looking down at me like he sees someone else in me. The whole house goes silent, and all we can hear is Nia's music as she takes her bath. He goes back to his chair, and I rise back up and take a seat shamefully. Plus, if you must know, you have gotten better. You've been here a little over a month, and I haven't heard you complain about your ribs since the first day. You've been keeping up with our jogs and your workouts. This takes time, and I've been training you as fast as I can. Nia has been doing this her whole life. Don't think you're on her level yet, he says. Yes, sir, I say. Nia walks out the bathroom and jumps to the table for food. What was all the commotion about? She asks. Nothing, Master Isaiah says. Now for the real announcement. Next month, there will be an exhibition event for those looking to enter the tournament. Really? Nia asks in excitement. Yes, really. Now, if I didn't think you were ready, I wouldn't have signed you up, he says. You mean y'all, I say to him. No, I meant right. I signed you up, Nia. Joseph, you'll have to prove to me for the rest of this month you can handle this tournament. Nia gets happy and excited, as she should, and I want to show how happy I am for her, but I can't. With anger, I say, yes, sir, and get up from the table without finishing my food and go lay down in the living room. It's kind of awkward because they can still see me in the living room from the kitchen. I usually call my mom and check on them every day, but I'm too mad to do that. Is he okay? I hear Nia whispering. He'll be fine, Master Isaiah whispers back.
Thank you so much. It's so fun to listen to. Now I'm just like, can you just read us the whole thing? But I do have a few questions I want to ask you in the pages that come after this, when Joseph and Nia actually start getting into some of the fights. Now, because this is like, it seems like a global tournament and there's people from all over the place, the opponents end up, I guess, having like races and nationalities and kind of characteristics that seem to go along with all of that. So I wanted to ask you some questions about a few of the moments with some of those characters, and to the degree that your story is, I guess, a metaphorical one. I'm wondering if you can tell us what you think these clashes have to say about some of the conflicts and problems that we're dealing with, in the sort of non-metaphorical world today, I suppose.
Yeah.
So, Mr. USA really stands out to me. As soon as I started to like get into his whole persona, I was like, this seems like a sort of sweeping metaphor of like what it means to sort of just occupy a certain kind of privilege as a white man in America. And I'm wondering if you can talk to us a bit about his character, his interactions with the other characters, what exactly it is that he stands for in your story. And then I guess two questions. I won't. I'll try not to do too many spoilers and like keep everyone here on hook to read your book. But I do want to know a little bit more about the part where he arranges for Joseph to be brainwashed, and a little bit more maybe about the way that he eventually reconciles, I suppose, with your core
Yeah.
group of protagonists.
Mhm. So Mr. USA, he is probably the most interesting character in this whole book. I've like with people with him, there's some people that just like his goofy antics, and then there's people that can see like the deep part of it. So that's kind of been fun with Mr. USA. Thing about Mr. USA is he's so okay, let me explain this because I don't know if I even explained this well in book. Mr. USA, it's not exactly just one human. It's like a fighter that takes that position to represent America for the Time to Scrap tournament. So maybe 5 years ago it was a different fighter, but now it's this Mr. USA, and they kind of don't really have an identity. It's just Mr. USA, his power, strength. You kind of got to fit a role to get that position. And because well, I guess I could go ahead and say it for the next book. There is going to be another Time to Scrap book. It's going to go a bit into more into detail about that. He's going to start to break out of that role a little bit more and become himself. The Mr. USA that America, and it's not just Mr. USA. There's a Mr. Russia. I call them the national fighters. Like you could tell, like certain fighters that are meant to represent a country. So there's a fighter for Britain, Russia, all those sorts of things. So for Mr. USA, he has to like fit an image, kind of sort of say like just every time he shows up, he's always he just brings an energy. He tries to put on like I'm America, y'all strong. The crowd loves him, everybody loves him. He shows up, he won the last Time to Scrap tournament. So that I kind of just wanted to put that I wanted that to represent like kind of in a way of what it how they not how they want Americans to be presented as, but kind of like the image of Americans of just always being as me and my friends say, that guy when they enter the room or when they enter a building. So yeah, there's definitely some depths with Mr. USA in that regards.
And then what about Haru and how did you pronounce this? Did you say
Gyro.
Gyro. Yeah. Can you
Yeah,
tell us a little
Gyro.
bit about them? And
Yeah.
here, I'm really interested in the sort of parallel you build in your book between their sort of like fighter and protege relationship, and Joseph's and Master Isaiah's, and then this also kind of layers on to Joseph's relationship with his late father. If you could talk to us maybe a little bit about these storylines and kind of like generational trauma and then like generational strength as well. I think that'd be really interesting.
Well, yeah. So to put it, so by the end of the book, you could, so pretty much Haru and Gyro are pretty much very similar as regard as power wise to Joseph and Master Isaiah. By the end of the book, you realize that, well, throughout the book, they kind of seem pretty standoffish, or, just like, oh, we're better than you. We won, you're losers. Kind of like that regards. And Gyro seems very strict on Haru. But by the end of the book, you kind of see that Haru never really had that chance to just grow outside the box. And what I did with that, the only inspiration I got from that, because I don't want to seem like I know everything, or but just hearing, stories from, like, I have a few friends that are Japanese descent or come from that culture. And, sometimes they say, I remember just even being a little kid, like, I'll be like, oh, I got a B. And they're like, I can't even get a B. Like, that's not even good in my household. So I kind of wanted to put that in there as well. Just like how sometimes they feel like they're just being, like how they have to somewhat uphold an image. I tried my best. I know I may not have done a real good job at it, but I kind of put that in there. But one thing I did know real good about was the whole generational trauma and generational just pain, because that's kind of firsthand. With Joseph, of course, he lost his father due to police brutality when he was younger. He has to overcome that. Then being poor, his mom couldn't go to school anymore. So he pretty much started working as soon as he possibly could, and just having to overcome that. My family, and not just my family, a lot of, not even just African American families, minorities families in America, they have so much trauma, so much just generational trauma, and so much stuff that they go through. And my family is no exception to that, because we've had our, fair shares of trauma as well. My mom always likes to say I was born in the middle of the train tracks, not where it was too good, but it wasn't as bad as she had it and her parents had it, because they've had it not pretty rough. They had it rough, as rough almost as it could get. So I kind of wanted to throw that in my book as well. But I also wanted to show the breaking point of that, the person that steps up and breaks that. And for me, that was, of course, my mom and her brothers and sisters, because before then they were very poor. Like, sometimes they didn't know, well, not sometimes, they didn't know when they was going to get their next meal, things like that, that a lot of, minorities in inner cities have to go through. For me, that was my mom. She broke that chain. We had moments where we were very, very low, but she made do and made do. And she worked hard, and, she went to college, despite, there was a lot of times she wanted to quit and give up, and it was hard, but she pushed through it. She broke that chain, and now she's a house owner. My auntie, she's going to school right now. My mom was kind of the stepping stone of, building a better generation for our family. And that's one thing me, my brothers, my cousins, we try to work on. I wanted to show that with Joseph as well, because I feel like a lot of people, they don't have that, or they don't see that. For me, I was blessed enough to see my mother break that, and hearing stories about what they went through. I was lucky enough to see my mom. I was actually able to see her break that. A lot of people, they don't see that, or they don't know. So to them, the trauma is normal. Going through what they go through is normal. It's just how life is supposed to be to them. But this book, I kind of wanted to, show Joseph as being that person to break the trauma, break the poverty, break the lifestyle that they have to go through. So that one, that's definitely from personal experience. And he's still working. Joseph is still working. He's not perfect, but he's still working on trying to fix things with his life and his family.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any closing questions or comments for Chris? All right. Well, thank you all so much for coming today. And thank you to those of the future yous who are going to be watching watching this later and sharing this space with all of us.